Hi listeners, Quinn here, putting this out front to let you know about the official Failure to Launch merch store. If you've ever wanted to wear or display space history, you can find clothes and posters at failuretolaunch.bigcartel.com. We've got all kinds of wonderful art like the Apollo Engineering Ronin, Jack Parsons Tarot card, and the First Orbital War 1988. If any of that sounds good to you, you can find a link below in the description. Thank you, and here's the show.
We had a pretty large bang associated with the caution and warning now. Okay, as we have an apparent serious oxygen leak.
4, 3, 2, 1.
Houston, we've had a problem. He's in a roll and he can't stop it. Performing an evasive maneuver. Okay, Houston, we've had a problem here. We need to do a little more all-weather testing.
Welcome to space.
Hello, listener, and welcome to Failure to Launch, the space history podcast where we take you through all the mistakes, failures, and explosions that made modern space exploration possible. We are your hosts, Quinn, he, him.
Chris, he, him.
And a cozy Chris, he, him.
And today, we're tackling Skylab 4 and the myth of the first mutiny in orbit. This is one I've been very excited about. This is one of the OG space conspiracy theories, or like legends that gets built up over time.
Quinn, I will level with you. It sounds almost like on the level of they didn't want to join a Zoom call, so they're obviously in open rebellion.
Yeah, that is something. That's something that we're going to get to. I literally have it in my notes of like, have you guys ever gotten like a ping from your boss at like 8 p.m. on a Friday and just gone like, I'm not checking that. Right to disconnect. I'm off hours.
Yes.
I wish I could do that and then consider myself in legal mutiny to my company. You know, I am flying the Jolly Roger of I'm setting my teams to offline.
Setting my teams to offline, and it just starts playing the
Jolly Roger, but it just has a gray circle in the middle instead of the skull and crossbones.
It's just playing the theme from Pirates of the Caribbean.
Okay, I want to go back a couple of minutes because it's lingering.
Oh no.
I'm still parsing the thought that you wanted to have a competition of whose hands are the driest.
I didn't say a competition. I said that whenever we were doing the clap sync, one of us had dry hands, one of us had sweaty hands, and I suggested engineering a scale so that we could know the optimal
who
time
has the
for
driest
clap
hands, and thus Quinn is going to attempt to win the driest hand competition that
why
he created.
Is dry better? You know, like you gotta have as we have talked about on this show, a little bit of skin oil, a little bit of kind of sebum on there, sebum, whatever, is better for you. You know, I contend that other Chris, by nature of having abysmally desert dry hands, is going to die first.
Yeah, I'm going to just slide out of my skin like Mark Strong.
Yeah. Mark Strong's skin coming off like you're peeling the skin off of like KFC.
Oh,
I don't know, Chris. do you only wash your hands with dish soap?
No, I have hand soap.
Okay, so my hands are probably drier than your hands.
It's the
Okay, we are making it a competition then.
The only soap that I have in my house is dish soap, so I just use dish. Well, I should correct for hand washing purposes.
Listener,
outside of the shower, I only have dish soap.
Listener, podcasters the world over are sacrificing to give you the content you deserve, and for just $3 a month, you can get little Chris some good soap. we have it in the show contract. We are all using Dawn dish soap until we hit a certain threshold.
Chris, it's just going to be a shot of you getting your hands washed and in the arms of the angels. Yeah?
Live show, we do ablutions together with the fans. On the other hand, if we want to make this space, I love that, like, all of these big inventions of the 60s and 70s and 80s for, like, oh, this is going to help us live in space have largely just been supplanted by, like, yeah, it's not worth it. So, like, Skylab had space showers, and nowadays that shit is considered very stupid, so they just use baby wipes.
Yeah, I mean, that's real.
Yeah.
Which, on the other hand, you know, I don't know about you guys, I don't think I can reach every part of my body perfectly with a baby wipe. You know,
Yeah,
I feel like there would just be one grimy diamond on the back of on my back.
Oh,
that unless I get another crew. Okay.
Yeah, that's why you get your bath buddy.
Yeah.
Or this invention called a stick.
Yeah, it's just a back scratcher, but okay, no, that could work.
No, it's the Soyuz Pokey stick. That's its all use.
There's just a sponge on the end.
It's to hit that tiny little diamond of your back you can't reach.
Shit, where's the stick? I think I left it in the bathroom.
Body just getting overrun by the poop bacteria.
Oh. I completely
Why did you have to make me think about that?
I forgot about the migration. Oh.
TM is the migration.
Okay. New art, new merch. It's Oregon Trail, except it's E. coli bacteria migrating up your ass crack. I'm cutting that.
I can't believe you're cutting that. That's the stuff that, like, the patrons deserve at the very least.
I know.
Save it. We're gonna have, like, the scooper cut.
All right, new patron idea, Quinn. Like, largely unedited and uncut versions of the episodes.
I will send you E. coli. I will give you trichinosis.
Assemble my E. coli on the
patron.
Top of
every single purchase from the show shop, which we now have merch. Yay, hooray! We'll send you a piece of rotten pork that you can eat and get trichinosis in order to perfectly simulate the conditions aboard Skylab 4. So, as we get into this, have you guys ever heard of the Skylab strike?
In passing.
Probably.
Okay. This is one of those legendary space stories that gets repeated and repeated, like, all through history. It's up there with, like, Vladimir Komarov shouting over the radio as his capsule burns up, Yuri Gagarin serving as something called a Death Watch officer for a dying Valentin Bondarenko, or the ever-classic of NASA spent millions making a pen that'd work in space. The Soviets launched a pencil.
Love of God, let's not open that one, please.
Yeah, well, we will eventually. That kind of stuff. So, yeah, it's that kind of stuff. It's
a quick deviation, though. The guy that did the pen did it for the love of the game.
Oh, yeah, his own money. He invested it and approached NASA. So, yeah, it's one of those stories, you know, like great stories that humanize the legendary figures of space exploration. In this case, the legend goes that early in the mission of Skylab 4, the third manned mission to America's first space station, the crew were pushed to the breaking point. Weeks of overwork and having every moment of their lives run on a strict schedule from Earth burned the all-rookie crew out. And so, on December 28th, 1973, they mutinied. They refused all transmissions from Mission Control and took the day off. They held America's first space station hostage in exchange for better working conditions. And it worked. 2 days later, Mission Control caved and redrew all their work schedules. Longer breaks, free time, no experiments after dinner. A lot of these changes carried forward. The Skylab mutiny became a lesson in how you can't treat a crew, even top-of-the-line astronauts, like machines. Some astronauts would view the Skylab 4 crew as Christ-like figures, those who made a sacrifice so that everyone else could see the benefits. And it was a sacrifice. Though NASA never formally punished them, astronauts Gerald Carr, Ed Gibson, and Bill Pogue would never fly again. If you couldn't tell from my tone, it's lies. That didn't happen.
It's all bullshit all the way down.
Well, I mean, as with every one of these stories, there is a little bit of truth. There's a kernel of truth that you can build it around, and the kernel of truth here is that being in space in the 1970s fucking sucked. And I do want to say, if the strike had happened, they would have been justified in it. It didn't, but, like, if they had, it would be a true dudes rock moment. I don't know if I would have struck. Like, the amount of shit they had, the amount of shit that an astronaut has held over their head of, like, if you tweet wrong, you can get kicked out of the astronaut corps. So if you go on strike, you're probably facing charges of some kind.
Can you ever think about the kernel of truth? Like, do you think there's a lieutenant of truth too?
Well, you have to, you like build up to it.
Yeah. I'm the captain of truth, actually.
Not as good, lower rank,
yeah,
not
I'm
as
I'm the
truthful.
brigadier general of truth, actually.
I am. I've been conscripted into truthfulness. I am enlisted.
I, John Conscriptovich, do this as sound mind and sound body.
And like, you can see why this is a hell of a story. You can see why it persists and why a few years ago, I believed a story like this just like I believe the Komarov story. It fit. These stories work because there's enough believable elements in them that they could have happened. The Soviets did cover up the deaths of cosmonauts. The Americans did treat their crews like machines and schedule them down to the minute. It makes sense that after weeks of overwork, I want to be clear here, they were doing 7 days a week, 16 hours a day.
That sucks.
Yeah. And they had more than 16 hours of worth of work scheduled, so that they often wound up just working 20 hours and like eating into their sleep time. Shit sucks.
Yeah.
It makes sense that after weeks of overwork and burnout, a crew of rookies would say fuck you to mission control and take some much needed R&R. Considering their working conditions, again, I think they should have gone on strike, but that doesn't change that the story is mostly a lie and that most of those events never happened. And to be clear, that's only part of what I want to talk about here today. The Skylab mutiny not happening doesn't mean that NASA wasn't absolutely fucking their crews over. It doesn't mean that astronaut burnout wasn't, and still is, a huge problem. There were issues during Skylab 4 that led to better working conditions for astronauts for decades to come. So that's what we're going to talk about. What actually happened, the real problems and how they were solved, and then how the media spun the entire thing into a story of mutiny on the stellar seas. You guys can tell I'm very excited for this one.
Mm-hmm.
I think I might have nailed it a little bit with the I'm not joining your Zoom call, and then you get called the Antichrist and dragged into HR.
Oh, yeah, like you become, like, the main thing that these astronauts are remembered for outside of, like, space nerd circles. Like, if you run into anyone on the street who has even heard of Skylab, they will probably point to the Skylab mutiny. This is one of those examples where the story, the myth, has effectively become the truth for a whole lot of people. Like, it is sourced in books, it is cited in all kinds of different articles, it has spread around. And in writing this, I was just thinking about how, like, coming back to the fact that being an astronaut fucking sucks, you like fully devote your life to one thing, and then once you get there, you are an overworked, underpaid civil servant that is constantly monitored by the world's nosiest and like managers. If you tweet wrong, you're fucked. There may not be formal punishments, but you're not flying. Your entire life has been rendered worthless. Good for you.
It's crazy to me that like that works that way, because it's like the whole reason they're doing that is because it's publicly funded using taxpayer money, and NASA has always been like the butt of the government's, we're going to cut the sciences because war is better. And it's just like the people who complain about the you have to go all the way down.
Yeah.
The pyramid of chuds who are going to defund science, because like clearly there are state representatives who don't believe in science and thus have constituents who don't believe in science and don't want it funded.
Or if they see an astronaut tweeting something that they disagree with,
it's
that's
irksome
suddenly a way
that works that way, where again like an astronaut is basically an employee, like, and then it's like, think about like how many like Lockheed engineers you ever see complaining on Twitter about their jobs. Oops, you don't, because like
right,
that's not publicly owned and the corporation will literally murder them if they do. So and that's also like, oh yeah, we can spend $800 billion a year on defense, that's fine, like, but if we spared like $20 billion for NASA, and God forbid the 6 people in the ISS have like good living and working conditions, like we got to squeeze these fucking apes for all they're worth.
Like
me. Actually fuck off with that. Seriously, like the idea that, oh, you're a public servant, you work for me, you go to space and must work 18 hours per day for like $10 an hour. Fuck you. That's just science, baby. America #1.
Oh, what? I'm paying for you to sleep now?
Oh, this is the Chris that I like to wake up and hear.
Yeah, sir.
Hit your stride, buddy.
Incelius Max the 5th.
Like it's genuinely, to me, it's just it's. I'm rambling. I'm rambling.
Someone is going to stumble onto this episode and come away with the idea of like, that's how it should be. It should be 7 days a week, 18 hours a day.
Yeah, everyone should work 7 days a week, 16 hours a day. That's what the human body was made for.
Do you have any idea how much of my tax money went to putting you into space and you're sleeping?
These are the same people that buy APCs for the police. So like, they don't bat an eye at that.
People do that?
One.
They like...
Okay, sorry. I thought
you
money,
meant like
right?
private citizens
private citizens are paying taxes, Quinn, that goes into funding public services,
I thought you meant like some
buying
millionaire
APCs
just buying
for the
a
police.
BTR for like, I don't know, their local town's sheriff.
No, this is Quinn finding out that people pay taxes.
All right. For sourcing, I am mostly going to be relying on the articles Skylab, the human side of a scientific mission, as well as further articles from the National Space Society. As always, all links will be down below in the show notes. I do want to say, I also read space journalist Henry Cooper's 1976 book, A House in Space, but this one isn't a source. I read it because it's the origin of the mutiny myth, and it fucking sucks.
Source, I made it the fuck up.
Chris, do you want to guess if this book had or did not have a source section, like a bibliography, for any of the claims it was making?
I mean, considering you opened with making up a bunch of bullshit and explicitly stating that it was made up, I'm going to go with no, there were no sources.
It's literally no sources, but it's repeatedly talking about how, like, oh, mission control, like a source inside mission control told me this. Aerospace engineers told me this. It also starts with the claim that Skylab wasn't a space station.
That literally sounds like some Sobrel shit. Yeah, well, they told me this.
Except Henry Cooper was a respected journalist. He was like he wrote all this shit in the New Yorker.
It's tradition for the mission control vest to be scented like vanilla.
Whoa.
Because you know, the guy's wife put it in his vest that morning. That's a new one, so spread that one far and wide. The mission control vest smells like vanilla.
We need to start our own.
Go scratch and sniff that man, you know.
breaking into the display at the museum because I want to sniff the vest.
You don't understand. I have to do this.
The one image where it's the like cutesy thing where it's like me cutesy. I don't remember what it is. It's like a. Me when I spread misinformation online.
Yeah.
It's like the little like cutesy thing or something.
Yeah.
A dry workshop.
Now, for those who don't know, Skylab was America's first space station and the third overall, launching in May 1973, a few weeks after the Soviet Salyut 2. Now, those who remember the date I gave for the supposed mutiny, December 28th, might notice that the third crew to the station was on board just 7 months after the station launched. Something I don't think people appreciate is how incredibly condensed all Skylab missions and really all space station missions back then were. It was only designed for about 5 months of total occupancy. Like, total.
Like, that was the expected life of it?
Yes. It launched in May 1973 and was abandoned in February the next year. Which you may also notice is a lot. They really stretched it. They went well beyond the design lifespan of this station. And it was this crew that we're going to talk about, Skylab 4, who spent almost the entire time on it beyond the expected safe lifespan of this station.
Everything up there just starts smelling really weird. You got some mold growing behind the panels.
I'm sure they had all kinds of, like horrible housekeeping tasks to keep track of. This is vaguely reminding me of like Salyut 1, whenever they'd try and use the treadmill, the solar panels would start flapping.
Yeah, it wants to go higher.
We've launched our first ornithopter to space. But yeah, just like, no one really knows what a space station is back then, and no one can imagine all the different edge cases that are going to happen. So you launch it, you send some people up, and you see what happened, and they live or they don't.
Yeah.
So, again, like, these time spans, this is not a knock against Skylab. That is just how stations were back then before we figured out long-term stays in space. Salyut 1 was occupied for 24 days in total. Salyut 3 was only occupied for 15. It wasn't until, I think, like Salyut 6 and 7 is where the Soviets finally figured out, like, once you have 2 docking ports on a station, it becomes substantially easier to keep people there for a long time, because you can, like, keep the Soyuz docked on one end and you can send a cargo ship on the other end, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And before that, Skylab, 1 docking port. All of the previous Salyuts and Almazes, 1 docking port. So they're capped out of this generation, Skylab 4 actually has the record because they're up there for 84 fucking days.
Ew.
Imagine the smell.
Almost all of that happening beyond the design lifespan of this station.
At that point, you will have lost a poop bag somewhere.
Oh yeah, no, someone else, like 2 missions prior, will have lost a poop bag. There's also another fun thing. The previous mission, Skylab 3, also because Skylab 1 was the launch of it, the numbers are kind of offset by 1. The Skylab 3 crew, they left a bunch of hidden mannequins in like scary places around the cabin for the next crew to find.
Someone punching a hole in the wall by accident because they get struck by a mannequin.
Also, I have no clue why they launched fucking mannequins on this thing. Like, why was this necessary?
Did someone think that, the astronauts would be comforted? Here we have Jim, and it just has, like, the bloody handprint on the face, like
we're
Wilson.
just doing I Am Legend in space. He's just talking to all the mannequins around the station.
No, just one. I'm telling you, one of them will have had the blood handprint on its face, like Wilson from Castaway.
Oh, hell yeah. We call this one Borman.
A massive frown cut into it.
Anyway, these 3 manned missions, Skylabs 2, 3, and 4, were designed to be back-to-back and fast. As soon as it launched, Skylab was a depreciating asset, and there were not plans to build another. So there was immense pressure to get as much done in as little time as possible, which is always good for space programs, as we know historically.
Somehow we just got even stupider. Then it would be a nice thing for the holidays. No, just fucking rack people through this thing.
Listen, we got 5 months and we're going to keep, like, this thing becomes dangerous 5 months in. We're going to keep this thing going for like 9.
Mission Control's down there screaming, "Why are you shitting? You're not supposed to do that.
This wasn't scheduled.
You're supposed to hit DEFCON 1 at 1700 flat.
Major, you are 30 seconds ahead on your poop break. This is coming out of your sleep schedule. What are you doing? This is work time. Poop when you're asleep."
Poop when you sleep.
So this rush was also reflected in the design of the station. Skylab was famously made from reused Apollo program hardware to cut down on costs and lead times, kind of like the SLS of today.
Oh, beautiful.
Except Skylab was actually like a successful application. It did come out cheaper than it would have. Basically what happened is because Apollo, like Nixon, as soon as Apollo 11 lands, Nixon starts slashing the later Apollo missions. I think they had planned out to like Apollo 22 or something, but like 19, 20, 21, 22, they all get axed. And that means, at least for Apollo 19, there was an extra booster that was in production. That meant that the Apollo program now had a bunch of old Saturn V's lying around and a bunch of in-progress parts, so like a 3rd stage. And specifically, Skylab was made out of an old Saturn V 3rd stage. This is a concept that we would call a dry workshop. There's all of these kind of rocket design concepts involving the workshop idea. The idea of a wet workshop is that you launch a rocket stage into orbit, like it has fuel in it, and then it burns all of that fuel and it's empty now, and then you live in it. That is what is called a wet workshop.
Oh.
A dry workshop is when you modify a rocket stage. It never has fuel in it. It never acts as a rocket stage, and then it becomes a living space.
Imagine in the wet one, the smell.
You keep saying, like, imagine the smell, but yeah, I can imagine it for very different reasons of, like...
No, with that smell,
one of them is the
there's
one of them is the
absolutely
BO.
no fumes lingering in there. Like,
Well, I mean, come on, it's Saturn V. We're not talking devil's venom here. We're talking nitrogen, oxygen, and hydrogen. Those are all the things we love to breathe.
Humanity's favorite cocktail.
The crews flew Apollo capsules to it, and those were launched by Saturn 1B rockets, originally designed for testing Apollo equipment. And I do have to commend Skylab here. This is a good application of, like, recycling hardware. This was done pretty cheaply and pretty quickly, all things considered. Now, as for the previous missions, both had gone pretty well. The second crew, Skylab 3, had actually earned a reputation as a super crew, quote-unquote, getting all their tasks done in record time and maintaining a punishing work schedule with little complaints.
they sound like they deserve a pizza party.
One of the astronauts on it was Owen Garriott, who was the father of one of the first space tourists and also game developer Richard Garriott. I don't know, that was just a fun little fact.
What game develop did
I don't know.
Richard make?
Oh, he's the Ultima guy. He made all of the Ultima games. and Tabula Rasa. Okay, yeah. Okay, yeah. Mostly the Ultima games. Man, we need to launch like we need to launch like the Dwarf Fortress guys into space. That'd be fun.
Oh, hell yeah.
So, Skylab 3, a lot of the work ethic they had came down to the example set by Commander and Moonwalker Alan Bean. Quote, "The first crew maintained that they made sure to eat all of their meals together to keep the human contact. This crew, on the other hand, rarely ate together, especially lunch. As Luzma said, since they were always rushing to work more and accomplish more goals, things you needed to do the most to prolong your life were the things that got the least priority. Eating on time, sleeping on time, exercising on time. They were extremely dedicated to their work, so they sometimes overlooked the most important concerns. Perhaps this is owing to a sense of being on the clock and always trying to get the most out of this limited time and space."
Quinn, question.
Yes.
Is Alan Bean from the Midwest?
I also
good question.
historically don't really know the confines of the Midwest and have been made fun of this for. No, Wheeler, Texas.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Is that a Midwest thing?
No.
Damn.
Well, I mean, like,
No, I know Texas isn't, but I mean like the ignoring eating on time, sleeping on time,
like
exercising on
overworking
time.
yourself, sort of. Yeah. I mean, like,
Alan Bean fully waking up and just like, oh, the breakfast of kings and it's a cigarette and a white monster.
Oh, that would have gone so hard, especially in space.
it's just because, like, some of my coworkers I've known, like the older ones, like they kind of don't have very good, or at least they used to not have very good work-life balance.
And I do love that, like, this is a crew, again, the legend is that Skylab 3 is known and recorded in all of these books and articles and whatnot as a super crew. And then you talk to the crew and astronaut Luzma is just straight up saying like, yeah, we didn't eat on time, we slept like shit, and we never exercised. That if you want to know how we hit this work-life balance, it's because we eliminated life.
The answer to our efficiency was misery.
Yeah, Skylab 3 also lasted like 2 months. Skylab 4 lasts a lot longer. In the end, Skylab 3 completed 150% of their assigned work in just under 2 months. They set new records for longest stay in space, and it put Alan Bean at the top of the rankings for longest time in space overall. But for our story, what matters is that they set the tone for the next mission. They had exceeded every expectation for workload, so Mission Control just decided to raise those expectations for the next crew.
This is why when you work tickets, you only do as much as you can do comfortably. Never do too much, because your reward for doing too much work is more work. So don't do that.
If I get assigned time for a ticket, that ticket is being filled. Or, as space writer Emily Carney put it, quote,
"This crew's activities were scheduled similarly to the final busy days of the previous mission. Oh no.
Yeah.
We're going to piece everything off of your apex."
Exactly. Skylab 3, they actually start off pretty bad. As soon as they get to the station, all 3 of them are violently ill, and NASA almost sends a rescue crew up to save them. They have to ramp up to their like incredible work pace, and eventually they are able to. But Mission Control sees that and just goes like, "Oh, the next guys, they can just do that for 2.5 months. Sorry, closer to 3 months."
"Hey guys, we're doing a press tour. Can you tell everyone how much you love to be an astronaut?" "Never again."
This would be an incredibly difficult schedule to keep, even for veteran astronauts, and the Skylab 4 crew were completely green.
Why did anyone who like does the staffing? Like, do they have, like, is this like the if you are like a manager, you have a degree that involves thinking about the human aspects of your job, don't you? It's
Right,
not
but
like a
here's the
situation where it's like
thing.
engineers who don't think about the human aspects of their job and they just engineer something for robots, right? Like, it's like,
Yeah.
you would think that whoever's in charge of creating these teams wouldn't just send all of the good ones together and then send all of the green ones on the next mission. Like, we're not octopi, right? Like, we don't have our skill sets grown into our DNA. We need to be instructed by Mama Bird on what to do.
For a second, I was wondering where you were going with the octopus thing, and I was like, yeah, we do, like, you know, veteran astronauts do have dissociated nervous systems. Their brains are spread throughout their entire bodies. Neil Armstrong could survive being decapitated and then just growing it right back like a starfish. We could convince Bart Cybrell of that.
How about
That
we go
astronaut?
in-
I mean, it's not a stretch if you want to turn it into astronaut. All astronauts are aliens. Like if you want to get like the Starseed people
Right,
in
but
on
then,
his.
but then that also begs the question, or it begs the very fun world building implication to me of the aliens also sent a complete rookie crew.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta do training too, even if you
Those
are an
apes
alien.
down there, all right, yeah, just go out there, just have fun, just do your best. And to answer your question about like why they didn't think about this, or why the decision was still made anyway, it's simple. Astronauts are not people; they are machines. This is the 1970s.
Also, did you know that Neil Armstrong backwards is Nort's Mr. Alien?
Whoa. Everyone always says that, yeah, I've heard that thing. I've heard people say, oh, like Nort's is clearly a greeting. What if it's a slur,
Oh no.
We're already sending like dick pics out to the universe. So I wouldn't put it past us to like, our first greeting with an alien to just be the equivalent of calling them a slur, like perfectly researching their language just to be able to insult them.
Good fucking God. No.
The Rookie Crew.
The crew of Skylab 4, Commander Jerry Carr, science pilot Dr. Ed Gibson, and pilot Bill Pogue were all rookies. None of them had ever been to space before, even though they all had years of training and experience with NASA by 1973. Carr had even been shortlisted to walk on the moon during Apollo 19, before that mission was cancelled. Problems started mounting even before launch. 5 days before liftoff, technicians found that the Saturn 1B booster had cracks in all of its fins. A problem that was traced back to the fact that that same booster had been prepped. So like, remember how I said Skylab 3, they get into space and all of them immediately begin projectile vomiting?
Yeah.
And NASA panics and thinks like, oh, we're gonna have to rescue these fucking guys. The booster that Skylab 4 launched with, it was prepped 2 months prior to go and rescue them. And then it was just left there, sitting on its fins, so by the time Skylab 4 launches, all of the fins have broken because the booster is so heavy it just cracks them.
Christ's sake. I love it. Hey, how about we draw down this booster maybe? No.
What if they puke again? We have to be ready. We have to have the go team ready with just some like cough medicine ready to go.
Listen, if his shit lasts 2 minutes over, we are lighting this candle. We are getting emergency
sending up a
on
progress craft, except instead of like the water tanks are just full of Buckleys and nothing else.
Ugh.
So the ground crews started working on fixing this problem, and this also kicked off a weird astronaut technician kind of insult war going back and forth. The astronauts were understandably concerned about their ride into orbit being repaired like 5 days prior to launch. And the technicians were very insulted when the astronauts started calling the rocket Old Humpty Dumpty, which the media then picked up on and started reporting.
Perfect.
Yes. Still, 20 minutes before launch, on November 16th, 1963, the ground crew radioed up to the crew and wished them good luck and Godspeed from all the king's horses and all the king's men. And I was going to say, I love the little astronaut ground crew interactions, brackets when they don't involve fucking Nazis.
Yeah, when you don't have one of the ground crew wearing a
fucking Stahl helm.
With SS symbols on the side. Yeah.
Fuck you, Gunter Wendt. Dude wasn't even like a paperclip. Dude wasn't even a V2 scientist. He was just a Luftwaffe pilot. That's who they were willing to just pick up and paperclip.
All he did was say, I went up, and that was apparently enough.
Yo, you did the Blitz? That was you? Whoa!
Well, just, hey, bombing England, love your work.
I do wonder if any of like the astronauts, I need to read some more, I'm sure they wouldn't have said it at the time because the whole, like everything has to be media controlled, everything has to be massaged as to why a bunch of SS officers are now working on the Apollo program. But like, I do wonder if any of the earlier astronauts, because compared to Soviet cosmonauts, American astronauts had a lot more flight experience. They were generally older. They were in their like 30s and 40s, where like almost every cosmonaut was like 22 or something. So long story short, a lot of them fought in World War II, and I wonder if any of them had some questions or comments about working with Nazis, unrepentant Nazis in a lot of cases, dudes who joined the like Nazi party in like 1922. I may be getting dates wrong, whatever, sue me, I'm mad. But back to Skylab 4. Once in orbit, problems continued apace. Within hours of intercepting and docking with Skylab, Bill Pogue got sick and started projectile vomiting around the station. I know this has been asked before. Yes, that could be a method of propulsion. You are accelerating mass, there would be movement in the opposite direction.
He's just up in space.
He's just rebounding off the walls.
Hey, Quinn, about how large is Skylab's interior? Like, what's the volume like?
I'm not certain of the volume off the top of my head, but like Skylab is huge. It is the largest, if you're talking about the largest singular volume ever launched into space, that's Skylab. It is a giant cylinder. There are no like sub-rooms off of it, and the only thing that breaks it up is that there are 3 floors. So basically it is split into 3 floors. There's a top and a bottom, and these are like metal grids, and they somewhat split it into rooms.
So what you're saying is that the vomiting probably didn't stink up the whole place.
No. I also don't really know what the ventilation in Skylab was like. Especially with early space stations, it quickly became a problem of, if there's an area in your station that doesn't get sufficient ventilation, it will just become a carbon dioxide bubble, and that can like give astronauts headaches. There are reports that I always love of like an astronaut goes to bed and their cabin doesn't have enough like air blowing through it, and they wake up with a horrible headache because they've just used all the oxygen.
They're just brain damaging themselves lightly.
Kind of. So this sickness isn't entirely unheard of. Astronauts often, like whenever you launch into space, often your first week is completely miserable because your body is adjusting to weightlessness. Nausea is just one of those common symptoms. But that's with the benefit of hindsight. And in 1973, space sickness was still very poorly understood. Also, we are still in the era of right stuff. And if you ever admit to being sick, if you ever admit to weakness, not only might you get pulled off future flights, but all of your astronaut buddies are going to hate you.
I mean, when you're loading up a poop bag, though, every like 20 minutes, I think they're going to recognize you got a problem.
While they should have reported the puking to mission control, Jerry Carr worried that NASA might get worried and pull the plug on the mission because, after all, they had just had this panic with Skylab 3. All 3 members of Skylab 3 had gotten sick at basically the same time. And because of that worry, Carr and Gibson, they decided that they would talk about how they would hide Pogue's sickness from NASA for the good of the mission. So they would lie to NASA, they wouldn't mention Pogue being sick. They talked about it, they said it aloud, they announced it a couple of times in the station, completely unaware that they were being recorded, and Mission Control found out immediately.
I was going to say, cool, one of them is going to be like on what's called call with, they're going to be on a call with Mission Control. In the background, you're just going to hear,
you just hear like, high five, like, yay lying. All right, nope, Gibson, I need you to say it again. I need you to repeat it with gusto once more. 3, 2, 1, go. Yay crimes. So understandably, this did not go down well with NASA. Head astronaut Deke Slayton even gave Jerry Carr a public dressing down for it. And while the crew apologized and Pogue eventually got better, it created lingering bad feelings between the astronauts and ground controllers. When Skylab 4 started running into real problems, no one was feeling particularly charitable toward them. So this is one of my favorite stories because this is just like both sides that need to be communicating. This is the most expensive and advanced thing that America had ever created at that time. And the crews who are up in it and the crews who are managing it from the ground are like, they fucking hate each other and they're constantly sniping the entire time.
I love causing problems.
Now, like we talked about, Mission Control had set the work schedule for Skylab 4 incredibly dense. They'd scheduled it based on the fastest work the previous crew had done, ignoring or forgetting that Skylab 3 had to build up to their record pace, and they had actually started pretty slow. Even worse, Skylab 4 was the last crew on the station. Every scientist at NASA or at an American university was jockeying to get their experiment on the new schedule. So not only was the pace incredibly optimistic, the number of tasks was, in a word, fucked. So like everything, all of the science, every single scientist in America is cramming for the test, and the bottleneck is Skylab 4, who are already scheduled for 16-hour days, 7 days a week. And they are being asked to work on their free time, quote unquote.
Doesn't sound free.
And the astronauts picked up on this problem immediately. As Carr wrote in his book later,
"We found that we had allowed ourselves to be scheduled on a daily schedule that was extremely dense. if you missed something, if you made a mistake and had to go back and do it again, or if you were slow in doing something, you'd end up racing the clock and making more mistakes, screwing up more on an experiment in general, just digging a deeper hole for yourself.
Hell yeah, I've been there. This also had me looking up sleep deprivation effects, and
how they tend to compound.
Yeah, and these astronauts report as the problem, obviously, as more problems crop up, every problem means more work to fix that problem, means less time, it means more time out of your sleep schedule. So at first they're like 8 hours, that's fine. 7.5, 7, 6.
It's a cascading
Eventually
problem.
they get to 4 hours of sleep, and the effects of sleep deprivation are fucking horrible. If you are in protracted 4 hours of sleep, your odds of making a horrible mistake go up like 3 times. And this is where we get to the myth making. The crew held on for 6 fucking weeks out of a planned 12 in total. That is, again, no days off, 16-hour shifts, and those shifts are just what you are scheduled for. If you fuck up and need to fix something, you're eating into your sleep time to do it. That is 112 hours a week scheduled and a fuck ton more unscheduled. I say again, if they had done a mutiny, they would have been justified. This is like 996 on steroids. 996 is 72 hours a week. This is 100 fucking
The normalization of 996, I'm actually going to like...
Something so fucked that the Chinese government banned it and Silicon Valley is just like, whoa, look at that.
They just hate winning. They just hate being able to make progress by exploiting human labor and grinding away any potential future people might have by subjecting them to a work-life balance that excludes life.
We have found the answer.
By forcing them into a working condition that makes them sleep 4 hours a night only for an extended period of time that, you know, cascades problems that probably result in permanent damage. And, you know,
finding my work-life balance, and it's just that quote from Cruelty Squad of just like, you are a flesh automaton animated by neurotransmitters. We have fully excised life from this equation. So the crew had complained to Mission Control, telling them that the work pace was unmanageable and it was causing them to make more and more mistakes. But instead of solving the problems, it just gave them a reputation as whiners. Quote, flight controllers and others at the Space Center who had never been faced with reluctant astronauts before openly talked of them as being lethargic and negative.
Okay, meanwhile, hey, don't worry.
So they're just sending these reports. They're just sending these reports like, hey, I'm being worked to death. Could I have like 2 hours off per day? And the flight controllers are just like, the fuck are you talking about? Clock in it. The flight controllers are not doing 16-hour shifts. They're going home to their families. This is one of those things where, like, you know, we've talked about it before. I will always be interested in it. The idea of like an astronaut complaining will generally produce a response of like, what do you have to be complaining about? Like, you have the coolest job in the world. But the thing that burns you out at a job is very seldom the actual job itself. It's the human side. It's the coworkers. It's the pay. It's the hours. And being an astronaut has the worst human side of a job in history. You sacrifice everything. You get paid like shit. And you have like the sword of Damocles over your head. And if you do complain about everything, everyone thinks you're a fucking coward and like a whiner.
Also, don't forget the fun of, imagine how difficult your job is now. Now imagine not having gravity.
Also, like a lot of organizations, like the military, like a lot of companies, NASA did have a policy that encouraged astronauts to complain and give feedback. You know, any good organization does. There's always, you know, it's your manager like, oh, come on, no, we got an open door policy. You can come in and tell me anything. Brackets, if you do, you're never flying again. Because while it is valuable to get feedback, this is still the right stuff era. And if an astronaut is too negative, you can bet that will be used against them in their chance of flying. And every single astronaut knows this, and none of them ever complain.
So obviously everything is perfect.
Of course, no feedback coming in means everything is perfect, which means that the rookies who presumably don't know this unspoken system of, hey, don't actually complain, it's just going to hurt your career.
Everything's perfect. No.
Whenever they start complaining, everyone at NASA is just kind of looking at they're looking at the guy at the other console like, yeah, I don't actually know what to do. He's saying I'm not perfect at my job. I don't get it.
He's not giving me a cookie?
Must be a him problem. So, again, we are 6 weeks into this mission. They have been keeping, like, the highest pace that the Skylab 3 crew has been able to meet. Skylab 4 has been trying to do that from the get-go. The situation is spiraling. The crew are being loaded with even more work. Like, as time goes on, they get more and more and more work given to them. It is ramping up at a speed that makes them make mistakes and need to work off hours to fix those mistakes, making them sleep deprived and leading to more mistakes. Meanwhile, the only people they have to talk to, A, don't like them, and B, think they're just spoiled rookies who don't know how to follow instructions. This is a project worth billions, a crew with tens of millions worth of training, and we have reached a complete communications breakdown. I fucking love this. I love a space program. You know, we talked before about, like, oh, you know, the public, if the public knew about this, like, infantile stuff, if they got the impression that, like, NASA was wasting their tax monies, I do love the idea of a multi-billion-dollar project being ground to a halt because both sides on the radio are playing, like, they're playing the fucking quiet game with each other. Hello, listener, and welcome to the mid-reel ad. If you enjoy Failure to Launch, more bad space history, and you want to hear more of it more often, there is an option, the FTL Patreon. Signing up at any tier gets you access to monthly bonus episodes and Q&As, and joining an elevated tier gets you even more content, like Chris-narrated minisodes. If that sounds good, you can sign up at www.patreon.com/failure to launch. And now, back to the episode.
The first stellar strike.
There was no strike, or mutiny, or deliberate comms blackout. The crew did not spend a day relaxing and staring out the window and eating snacks. What did happen is that Jerry Carr finally managed to get across to Mission Control just how badly things were and that they needed a break. It helped that NASA was also starting to see a very noticeable drop in the quality of the crew's work. They were sleep deprived and had been working without stop for 40 fucking days. You can bet they were not firing on all cylinders. Mission Control agreed to give the crew one, and I have in square brackets here, 1 day of less work. This is not a day off. This is just a day with marginally less scheduled. This is the solution.
Of course.
God,
Very
I hate
managerial of them.
Yeah, sure. We could, like, well, you're firing at like 110%. We can bump that down to 105 for a couple hours for you. Should be enough to get you back up to speed. This was a makeup work day. So, like, basically, as they've been going, they have been building a backlog of all of these different tasks that they don't have time to get to. This day off was just a day with, like, no new experiments scheduled. This was a time for them to play catch up. And they did not get a break. In fact, to maximize their time so that they could get through as much of this catch-up work as possible, the crew started taking shifts on who would monitor the radio to keep in contact with Earth. Normally, all 3 crew members would have their radios and headsets on so that they could answer in real time, but that could also be distracting and slow them down. Unfortunately, as Ed Gibson put it, and
we each signed up for an orbit as the radio response guy. Well, one day we made a mistake, and for a whole orbit, we all had our radios off.
So this is the myth right here. This is the, like, the tiny little, this is the dust fleck that, like, the snowflake gets made out of. One orbit, and an orbit is 90 minutes here. They just forget to turn on their radios. That's it.
They were still working, though, right?
Oh, yeah. The whole thing is, like, normally they have their radios on, but sometimes it can be distracting, so they take turns so that only one of them ever has their radio on, and then they just fucked up the schedule and they all had their radios off, which means that they were actually probably working faster. That also means that if they had been doing this mutiny the way it's often described in the story, that would limit it to 90 minutes, an hour and a half, because that is how long an orbit takes, and they rotated every orbit. And would you guys like to know the best part?
I love to know the best part.
Even after this quote-unquote low-intensity day that absolutely wasn't low intensity, things did not get better. Mission Control immediately put Skylab 4 back to work at exactly the same pace as before. It was only a week later, when the crew had what Jerry Carr called a séance with the ground team, that they started to make some progress. This is like classic therapy shit. On one pass over the US, the crew sent down a long list of complaints and their suggestions for how to fix them. The next morning, the ground crew sent up their own list of criticisms for the astronauts and some fixes they were willing to make. This is like a clearing of grievances.
It's going to be dog shit regardless.
Now, Jerry, do you have anything you want to say to Mission Control? Okay, and we're just going to listen, Mission Control. Quoting a National Geographic article, crew and ground have a heart-to-heart discussion, and the air clears. A guy needs some quiet time to just unwind if we're going to keep him healthy and alert up there, Carr tells the ground. There are 2 tonics for our morale, having time to look out the window and the attitude you guys take and your cheery words. I do think that, like, Carr is a military officer with experience in leading people. Being an astronaut, like, you know these dynamics. Being just anyone working, you know these dynamics. And their morale is dog shit because they don't have any free time. Like, they're up in space, but if you look out the window, if you gaze upon the wonders of the cosmos, you're wasting taxpayer money. Get the fuck back to work. Also, the only people you have to talk to hate you and insult you to your face. Jerry Carr would later write that this was the first sensitivity session in space, and considering that Jerry Carr is a right stuff, badass, macho astronaut, you can bet how much that hurt him to write. But it was needed. This right here, Skylab 4, is what happens whenever, this is the point where right stuff becomes obsolete. Because up to this point, it's been right stuff. This is the point where, clearly that mentality breaks down.
This is where being an astronaut becomes woke.
Yeah, this is where the main qualification of being an astronaut becomes, are you friendly and can you get along with people for months on end? So, over the next few days, the work schedule was slackened up a bit. And I really want to hammer on a bit. Contrary to stories of how successful the quote-unquote mutiny was, the crew did not spend the rest of their mission living in luxury gay space communism. The only concessions they got out of Mission Control is that they were allowed to schedule a couple of housekeeping tasks per day and that no major experiments would be done after dinner. That's it. I mean, it's a good change, but that's it. They are still working on an incredibly punishing schedule, and they are now down to 15-hour days. They also don't get days off.
Yeah, I figured that one.
Yeah. Like, this is not a huge success for them. The crew of Skylab 4 spent the rest of their mission working on all kinds of experiments. They gathered biomedical data from each other.
Jack off.
Yeah, that's what we're calling it now. They took readings of the Earth, and they even managed to get photos of the comet Kohetuk, as it swung close to the sun. Ed Gibson, a scientist with a PhD and a specialty in solar physics, even managed to catch and record the birth of a solar flare, the first time that had been done from space. And you can bet, if you are an astronaut and you also have a PhD in solar physics, you can bet that is the happiest moment of your fucking life.
Especially if you're the first ever person to do it.
Exactly. And skipping ahead a little bit, Ed Gibson retires from NASA almost as soon as he hits the ground so that he can go work at a lab and analyze his results. Because if he's an astronaut, he's not actually the guy crunching the numbers. He quits specifically so that he can keep pursuing this set of data.
Also, he knows he's probably never going to get to fly again, and also just fuck Mission Control.
Well, yeah, kinda. They also probably accidentally took photos of Area 51, and there was a big debate between NASA and the CIA of all of these photos technically have Groom Lake in them. What, are we going to redact all of these photos from our civilian space station?
Is someone just with a Sharpie just...
Yeah, there's just a large black dot in Nevada. What's that?
It's where the Madness series happened.
Except it's actually real. Area 51 just has a giant Vanta black tent over it. Yeah, a large.
The weeks after that, as they're setting up the tent, they're just cursing because of these fucking astronauts and their stupid fucking camera.
In the end, these images were just released as is, and they just hoped that no one would notice the top secret airbase in them. And apparently, I don't know if the Soviets, I'm willing to bet the Soviets already had images of it. 1973, it's not like they were just discovering Groom Lake. The crew returned to Earth on February 8th, 1974, after a record-setting 84 days in orbit. When looking at the sheer number of experiments completed and data sent to Earth, Skylab 4 achieved by far the most of any crew, even the so-called super crew of Skylab 3. So, history, a lot of reports, a lot of books remember them as they were the guys who complained. They were the guys who didn't get stuff done, who were reluctant. They were the rookie crew. They got the most done of any Skylab crew. And not just in terms of they were up there for longer, so they did more work. The pace of work, they maintained it better than any previous crew. And it's not good that they had to, but when all of the history, when the thing that they are remembered for is like, oh, you were the guys who quit, you were the guys who went on strike, I think it needs to be hammered on how successful this crew was and how they were able to overcome these problems. It's not as funny, but just like, fuck, I don't like people's legacies being dragged through the mud like that.
Hey, you didn't let Mission Control yell at you for 90 minutes. What the fuck?
One of the funnier things is, we've talked about this before, Mission Control, I don't know if this was still the case then, but specifically because the only person who can really relate to an astronaut is another astronaut, just because of how wildly unique their job is. Mission controls nowadays, like the Capcom, the capsule communicator, is normally an astronaut, just because no one else can understand their problems.
Yeah, fair enough.
I have been launched into space. I have millions of dollars. I have trained for this. I have millions of dollars of training behind me. I have trained for this my entire life. Shit sucks, and Yevgeny keeps stealing all the good yogurt, and there's nothing but vanilla left. I'm gonna murder someone. No, this is it's a real thing. You know, like whenever the good food gets up to the ISS, they immediately eat the good stuff, and they're then just left with like, all right, what can I do with a ketchup packet and oatmeal?
Yevgeny ate all the
Yeah.
he ate all the yogurt. He ate all the yogurt that has fruit in the bottom first.
Yevgeny going through opening up every single M&M package and individually just eating the red ones and leaving them.
Red 40, red 40.
Everyone else wakes up the next morning and it's just a cloud of M&Ms.
Just flying everywhere. Oh, dude, if you set me loose, okay, take Skylab. Get rid of the floors, so it's just a huge empty cylinder. Throw about a kilo of Skittles in there and set me loose. I will be pinging off the walls for hours.
No, give me a wrist rocket as well. I want to shoot M&Ms at people.
I bet there's been some like pretty good snipes on the ISS, you know, like all the way down. If you can get it through like multiple modules, you just see like someone working at the far end and you just like perfectly line up a Skittle and you just I'm describing curling now, I realize.
Just a single tap of the finger and it's just da 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 da. Just
okay.
Like
now I'm thinking about it. I bet you could do like 0G curling really well. Like if you threw a Skittle and then you had two astronauts and instead of brushing, they're just kind of like blowing, just kind of to like move the Skittle in its flight path slightly.
No, now I'm just imagining someone making one of those folded paper darts with a rubber band along the entire length of the ISS.
Are you guys watching? This is gonna be insane. Just putting out a cosmonaut's eye.
Just blasting someone in the back of the head while they're like just sitting there at a chemistry station.
Throwing a metal dart and it just like plonks into the aluminum wall. I can't wait until we do the Mir series, because we're gonna get to talk about the vector collision, which is where Mir vented an entire capsule, an entire section, by slamming it with a manually controlled cargo ship.
That couldn't have been good.
It's fun. Basically, when the Soviet Union collapsed, the control system company wound up in Ukraine and Russia didn't want to pay for it, so they devised a system where the crew would manually pilot in the cargo shuttles, except this wasn't done with like a camera or anything. You would just look out a window, you would see it flying towards you, and because it's flying towards you, the commands would be reversed. So you're just trying to like guide it in, and it didn't work, and the docking probe punched clean into like Mir's lab module, where all of the science was done. So for the rest of its life, Mir as a scientific outpost was basically like null.
You're just up there like torturing a squirrel, and then you just see God's metal finger just poke through.
Then you just see a large, like metal, like 3-foot long spear go clear through your rib cage.
The spider you were helping is now just a schmear.
So yeah, getting back to Skylab, unfortunately, none of the crew would ever fly into space again. Though that's not as due to retaliation by NASA as it is that NASA was in a complete lull in the 70s. From 1974 to 1981, when the shuttle first flew, there was only one manned American mission, the joint Apollo-Soyuz, which only had 3 spots for astronauts. That means that there is an entire 7-year gap where the astronauts just have fuck all to do. If you don't get on this one mission, congrats, there is nothing left.
God, I still desire the Apollo-Soyuz cigarettes.
So none of the Skylab 4 crew were picked for Apollo-Soyuz, and then they all retired in that 7-year gap. Again, some of them retired right away. Ed Gibson, Dr. Gibson, he retires right away specifically so that he can go work on the solar radiation stuff. Jerry Carr stayed with NASA till 1977. He specifically went to work with the engineers. So like the astronaut corps, they have a kind of design review team where off-duty astronauts who are not flying, they work with engineers and just kind of give advice on designs of like, hey, this, I've been to space. Here's how this works. Here's how this doesn't work. Can you maybe fit that into your design? And Jerry Carr specifically went there to work with engineers to devise like, how can we make space somewhat better to live in? And he had a very good lived experience of what makes space shitty.
Hell yeah.
Finally, Bill Pogue, who I love, became something of a science communicator. He became like a space evangelist. He was self-employed and he traveled the world giving talks and just making like basically proto-YouTube videos. He made like video essays about space exploration. He also wrote the very fun book, How Do You Go to the Bathroom in Space? Which is just, I think it's like 180 questions. It's just a Q&A book of like people ask questions about, hey, how does this work in space? How does that work in space? And Bill Pogue, he answers some of them himself, but he also gets like a bunch of other astronauts to weigh in. And it's a very good primer on the realities of living in space, of how many things are different. All of these guys, they don't fly again, but again, that's just because like in the 1970s, I will say, okay, I missed something as well. Ed Gibson, he eventually went back to NASA to head up their training and selection for scientist astronauts. So like we said before, Gibson, he has a PhD. He's a doctor when he becomes an astronaut. He is one of the first scientist astronauts. And that becomes a bigger thing as time goes on.
It sounds like they're almost the better for it.
Yeah, and like all of these guys, they don't fly again, but that's specifically just because NASA is bleeding astronauts in the 70s. No one wants to wait around for the shuttle, which is getting delayed and delayed and delayed. And if you're not, Apollo-Soyuz happens in 1975. So there is then another 6-year gap where no American is launched into space. So all through this period, astronauts they're going to work for Lockheed. They're going to become consultants. They're going into this or that. No one's hanging around.
The Mutiny Myth.
As for the legend of the Skylab strike, we actually have a pretty good idea of where it came from. One of the sources was a report by the New York Times published while the crew was still in space, sourcing anonymous ground controllers as saying that the Skylab 4 crew was lethargic, that they didn't want to work, and that they were whining about the workload.
Okay, fuck you, buddies.
Say classy New York Times op-eds.
Post-Apollo astronauts just don't want to work anymore. They've got it too good. Not like
this is how
like
millennials
us.
ruined astronauts.
This is how I became a woke astronaut.
Opinion article. My fellow crew members are woke? What can I do?
Shut up. You're going to lathe that into reality.
Dude, just wait until we talk about astronaut politicians. They are so shitty. Another article by the Harvard Business School started to add some details to the myth, claiming that the crew had deliberately shut off their radios in protest and that NASA had agreed to change their schedule to get them back to work. So we're starting to see, like, the New York Times one is just reporting on the crews not getting along and like, oh, these guys are complaining. The Harvard Business School starts to fully lay out like, no, there is a work stoppage. There is a strike. Something concrete happened. And you can understand why a story like this would be catnip to print media. Drama sells. And just what we've described, like the actual history of this, there's a reason why we're talking about it. There is drama in the fact that these crews, the crew in space and the crew on the ground, hate each other, and they are sniping at each other, and they are complaining to each other. This despite the fact that 3 days after their first article, the New York Times put out another article saying that Mission Control was actually very satisfied with Skylab 4 and the mission was going perfectly. But the biggest purveyor of the myth of the Skylab mutiny has got to be Henry Cooper Jr., a veteran space reporter for The New Yorker, and his 1976 book, A House in Space. Like I said at the start, I read the thing, but I am not using it as a source, and I don't recommend it in general. It's not very good, and it's weirdly emotional for what is supposed to be a historical retelling of the entire Skylab program. Cooper comes across as specifically hating every member of the Skylab 4 crew on a personal level, to the point that more than half of this book, this is a book about the entire Skylab program start to finish, more than half of it is devoted to Skylab 4 and shitting on them. while most retellings of the Skylab mutiny have a kind of like dudes rock message behind them, it's like these guys weren't treated well, but they, they stood up and they got good working conditions, and that has been passed down for generations. For Cooper, it's actually that they were weaklings and socialists.
Yeah, I was about to say, yeah. Of course. Of course.
Here's an example. Cooper's introduction of the crew. Quote, Gibson, a slight astronaut with sharp features who was a civilian and a physicist, and who had a square jaw that apparently never stopped moving the whole time he was in space, was perhaps the contrariest, bitchiest astronaut that ever departed vertically from Cape Canaveral, and his two crewmates were in the same category.
Die mad idiot, you never went to space.
I'm just like, this dude, this scientist astronaut who has a PhD, who is one of the world's leading experts in the sun at the time, is like, fucking bitch, but he also never stopped talking.
Your jaw's square.
You stud.
Your feet look weird.
Cooper's telling of the crew's day off sets the modern myth. The crew, feeling overworked and not listened to, decided to stage a mutiny, turning off their radios for an entire day, or sometimes one orbit. It goes back and forth, refusing to work and relaxing instead. Once they were done, they activated their radios and read out a list of demands. Less work, more time off. In Cooper's writing, this made the crew communists, and he drives that home by comparing he literally uses the word revolutionary beards, which they didn't have time to shave because they were so fucking busy, to the slovenly cosmonauts on Salyut stations.
Whoa.
So this is coming out in 1976, like 2 years after the mission, and he's just like, these fucking astronauts are communists and they got shitty beards. You know who has shitty beards? Russians.
Oh, got him!
And like, in 1976, accusing a crew of astronauts of being actual communists is probably a bit bigger of an accusation than today.
Also coming from someone who's, is there a slur for someone who hasn't left, like, the binds of gravity?
Earther?
Earther. You fucking groundy.
I guarantee you, there is like so much, obviously, it's covered, they don't want to spread it out much because it would, harm the image of the brave space travelers and whatnot. I guarantee you there is an astronaut slur for people who have never been to space.
Good. I am happy with it applying to this person.
And again, the weirdest thing for me is that this guy was considered a respectable space journalist. He was right, like, after this, he stays, nothing happens. This book becomes a success. It becomes one of the first successes, and because of that, it basically gets to write the history that people read. And he's out there, like, these are the bitchiest astronauts I've ever seen, and their beards suck.
Your beards suck, but you're hot.
Even for, like, pop history, like, I have talked about how much I hate pop history, this is deranged. Also, like we talked about before, he has no sources for any of this. There is no bibliography in this book.
He's the meme. He's the source. I made it the fuck up.
Yeah. He repeatedly pointed to aerospace experts and contacts in mission control without actually backing any of it up because, again, it's all lies. When the book came out, Dr. Ed Gibson slammed it, saying that Cooper had never reached out to him or any other astronaut to see if these stories were actually true. Still, like I said, A House in Space was one of the first books on Skylab to hit the market, and it became an instant bestseller, and because of that, it set the narrative for decades to come. Even whenever other people wrote their own books or their own articles trying to, like, debunk it, it had already, like, the Skylab strike had already become a myth and a legend, and it was getting spread around word of mouth. There's no killing that. There's no stopping it.
It's gained inertia.
Yeah. And coming back to it, I do think that if they had struck, it would have been justified. Like, these myths always have a core of truth, and the core here is that NASA never adjusted their work schedules from, like, Gemini and Apollo missions that are meant to last, like, 2 weeks tops. They never adjusted that to the months-long Skylab stays. Like, you could maybe work like, I used to, at my old job, we would do campaigns, which is going out to the desert and throwing parachutes out of a plane. If it's a 14-hour day, it's a 14-hour day. You're down there, you get the job done. You can do that for like 2 weeks. If you're doing that for fucking 12 weeks, 3 months, strike, do a mutiny. 16 hours a day, 7 days a week, and so much extra work that it intrudes on your 8 hours of sleep, and you just get into this like horrible cycle of sleep deprivation and overwork, and the guy on the radio occasionally calls you slurs for people who have been to space.
Oh God, I hate them so much.
It's fun. It's fun. So, guys, that has been the story of the mutiny in space and what actually happened on Skylab 4. How are we all feeling?
So it's just sensationalist boomer media all the way down, isn't it?
Yes. Although like the actual experience of Skylab 4 was incredibly hellish.
It feels increasingly like the entire perception of the worldview of people then that is, carried onto today is shaped by lies.
Oh yeah.
Lies, deceit, source. I made it fuck up.
If you strike first, see that's kind of the issue. Like anytime anything happens, this is well studied. There are, listen to Knowledge Fight, listen to QAA. They all cover this much better than we do. Anytime anything happens, it's wet concrete. If you can be the first to draw in that concrete, you win. Your image is going to last. Your message is going to last longer than anyone else's. And lying is always faster than making a well-researched book or argument or article. So if you just come out and say shit, there's a good chance that your version will become, if not the one truth, it will at least become accepted truth for a lot of people. A lot of these conspiracy theories that we talk about with space, they start coming out in the 90s, especially from the Soviet Union, because that's when, they start coming out in Glasnost. They start coming out in 1991 when the Soviet Union falls, because all of these old guys, all of these engineers are suddenly rushing to write their memoirs now that the concrete is wet, now that they're allowed to, which is why you have like Vasily Mishin writing a book, his memoir, about how the Salyut 1 crew deserved to die because they were so stupid. And then the technicians who worked on it writing another memoir in counter to him saying that no, it was his fault. It's just a game of narratives, And if you can strike first, then you can win.
That's usually how things work.
Yeah.
God damn it.
I can't believe that reality is just, you can take the rules of naval warfare and apply it to your observation of truth. Whoever shoots first wins.
I didn't know that was a rule of naval warfare, but I trust.
Well, I mean, I'm really watering it down, but it's basically like the concept of like you have to go back to like the age of sail and basically how everything is essentially in phases of barraging, right?
You've been playing Ultimate Dreadnoughts lately, haven't you?
No, I have not.
Damn it.
Yeah, like the point being is that like whoever shoots first deals the first damage, reduces the capacity of the opponent's systems, which means they do less damage, and then it kind of snowballs from there.
And then you've won the attrition battle.
Yeah, you win the attrition battle by reducing their ability to deal damage to you first. So the counterattack that they send is now weaker, and thus you take less damage and then continue to do more damage to them.
All right, well, I don't know how things work in Ultimate Dreadnoughts, but that's why Japan is so powerful in Civ 5, because their units deal full damage no matter how damaged they are.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think Stellaris too. Weird that started with a how are we all feeling question, but I feel like everyone's brain is just I just got to get some stuff out of my brain.
That's fair.
Also, listener, there might have been a little ad out front. I'm not sure yet. But we now have a merch store. You can find it at failuretolaunch.bigcartel.com, and it will be linked below. If you want to check it out, we have got a growing collection of shirts, hoodies, and posters you can get with some wonderful art made by friends of the show, like Jack Parsons as the Devil Tarot card.
That one goes hard.
Yeah, I love that one. So yeah, check it out. And thank you for listening. Turn off your comms devices, look out the window, take a break, and stage a mutiny. Goodbye.
I hope that this email doesn't find you. I hope you are free.
I hope you've escaped the cycle.
Setting my auto response while I'm on vacation to just like apologies. Quinn is mutinying right now and will be unable to respond to your emails. Goodbye. I still want to see if I can mod Teams to make the do not disturb icon a little red skull and crossbones.
I wouldn't be surprised.
There's got to be a skin for that. They have the sad shark saying we went bankrupt. So
what's the other one? We got sued.
Oh yeah, sorry. That's the one I'm thinking of.
Thank you to everyone who have signed up to support the show, and a big shout out to all of our top tier patrons.
Our cyborg cats are Asha Rin, Boss, Katiga Reptile, Charlie, Comrade Sleepy Bro, Daniel F, Graham E, Jesselyn T, George 2, One Small Step for Stretch Armstrong, Joss, Kamo, Lane of the Wired, Matt, Mobius Striptease, Murray Motorsports, Mysterious Stranger, Oil Drum, Pat, Paul C, Rare Sprungle Spingus 3rd Edition, Skylab Bricks, Number Negative, so I can just type anything into this box and you'll just say it. Source Force, Spectre Cohen, Tortilla Baron, Vivek D, and Wingsmith. Our space ons are Redacted, Your Local Ice Thug, It's a Safe and Legal Thrill, A Union Thug, A. Blinken, Akiogo, Ariel Badger Release, Agent Carter, Alex, Alice N, Andrew F, Andrew K, Angie, Angry Old Man Yada Yada, Anthony C, Atomic Hobbit, Otto Fox, Avocado Assassin, Baron M, Bat They, Ben L, Big Meg, Binary Badger, Beanie, Boomzilla, Brian, Brian L, C, Cantaloupe Was Taken, Carson D, Chainsaw Snuggling, Charlotte M, Chris, Chris K, Christian K, Clay M, Cole C, Cowpoke Comet, Captain Lag, Daddy Bongo, Daniel, Darth Baby, Does Smiley, Dom K, Drain Vantage, Dr. Shockmaster, Duke of New York, Ank, Aaron, Eric J, FBH, Fractal Moonlight, Furious Luddite, George B, Grant K, Griffin, former snow shoveler of Burger King, Heiko S, Howl's Moving Pictures by Rush. I hope you have a good day. Ian R, Iggy Naramis, Iln N, JMM, James A, James C, James H, James T, Jamie K, Jarl Breadmaker, Jerry M, Jedediah D, John C, John Boy D, Jonathan G, Jonathan W, Johntastic 20x6, Joseph RH, Josh C, Juan, Just Morse, Kate D, King Bun, Clea Chichka, Corbin the Dog, Cruzzy, Lenswipe, Lorgath, Luke O, Majestic Affect, Mar, Marigold Muskrat, Marto, Mecha Girl A, Michael C, Mish, Mr. Dr. John, Moomin Instrumentality Project, Narrow Ebb, Nelly W, New Name, Nicholas S, Nick S, Norman W, Northeast Driver, NSFW NSA, Outlook Cove, Panda, Patron, PB, Poopbutt, Randall, Ray H, RBK, Rayco B, Riley, Robert G, Sailor of Fortune, Scott K, Sean F, Sean H, Sensual Kazoo, Sean P, Silly Vixen, Something, Sparks, Spirit of Thunder, Swanee, The Best Sean, Thomas M, Tim P, Toasty Ken, Trash Do, Barash T, Brisk, Will W, William O, William P, Winston P, Zachary JB, Zap, Zemo, Zim, and Zombie Dwarf. Albert Count 206. Thank you for listening to another episode of Failure to Launch. If you want to follow us, we are Failure to Launch on Blue Sky and FT LaunchPod on Instagram. We also post our episodes with visual aids at Failure to Launch Podcast on YouTube. FTL intro and outro themes were provided by DJ Danarchy.